I always believed I was the kind of man who thought things through, the sort who avoided impulsive decisions. At least, that's what I told myself. But life has a cruel way of changing the rules when you least expect it. When betrayal shatters something deep within you, it's as if all those carefully constructed boundaries no longer matter. Suddenly, you're capable of things you never imagined. I'd always considered myself a decent husband. No saint, but someone who worked hard, loved his wife Sarah, and ensured our life was stable. We had a modest house, a dog, a circle of friends, and no pressing issues to speak of. From the outside, our life seemed ideal. But cracks have a way of forming in even the strongest foundations, and ours started small. It began with text messages left in plain sight, work hours that grew increasingly erratic, and nights where Sarah's presence was conspicuously absent. At first, I dismissed my unease. She was stressed, I told myself. Busy. But the whispers of doubt grew louder. Something didn't feel right. I'm not naturally suspicious, nor do I like prying into someone's private matters. But there's a point when a nagging feeling refuses to be ignored. One morning, as I poured coffee in our kitchen, her phone sat unlocked on the counter. My first instinct was to leave it alone. I wanted to trust her, to wait for her to come to me with whatever was causing the distance. But curiosity is a relentless beast, and I couldn't stop myself. That's when I saw the name, Derek. The text thread was there, innocuous at first glance. But as I scrolled, my heart sank. Can't wait to see you tonight, one message read. I'll make sure everything's set. You know how he is, she had written. And then Derek's reply, we're almost there. It's just a matter of time. At first, I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe it was work-related. Maybe. But no. Deep down I knew. The late nights, the secrecy, the growing chasm between us, it all made sense now. Sarah wasn't just cheating. She was planning something far worse. Derek wasn't some random fling. He was a businessman with a reputation for shady deals, someone who had the power to ruin lives, and he was using that power to conspire with my wife. They were plotting to destroy me. Piece by piece, the plan came into focus. Subtle sabotage at work, financial missteps orchestrated to look like my fault, and eventual bankruptcy. Derek's expertise and Sarah's access to my life made them a formidable team. They wanted everything. My job, my assets, even the home we had built together. I felt numb at first. Then came the anger. And with it, a chilling clarity. This wasn't just betrayal. It was annihilation. They intended to strip me of everything I had worked for. But I wasn't going to let them. For weeks, I bided my time. I watched. I listened. I gathered every piece of evidence I could find. Sarah's business trips were easy to track, and Derek's communications left a digital trail that painted a clear picture of their conspiracy. I knew confronting them too soon would only give them time to cover their tracks. No, I wanted them to suffer, to feel the weight of their own deceit. My opportunity came during a dinner party Sarah had arranged. She had invited Derek under the guise of a casual gathering, assuming I'd be out of the house. But I had other plans. Earlier that day, I visited a specialty shop, the kind that catered to people seeking exotic, discreet solutions. Among the options, I chose something precise: ricin. A few granules were all it would take. Undetectable to all but the most thorough tests, it worked slowly, ensuring they would feel every agonizing moment. That evening, I watched them through the window as they laughed and chatted over dinner, completely unaware of the storm about to descend. I had slipped the poison into their wine earlier, just enough to make them feel ill, to begin the slow, insidious process of breaking them down. As they toasted, I felt a dark satisfaction. They thought they were in control, masters of their deceit. But now, the tables had turned. Their bodies would betray them, just as Sarah had betrayed me. I stayed in the shadows, waiting. The night was young, and the game was just beginning. The wine glistened in their glasses, ruby red and deceptively inviting. They laughed, their voices a blend of merriment and malice, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond the door. Minutes passed, and I watched from the shadows as they sipped, their smiles wide, their guard lowered. But then it began, subtle at first. Their stomachs twisted, their heads swayed ever so slightly, and confusion clouded their expressions. They tried to brush it off, laughing nervously, But their laughter was hollow, their voices trembling. I stepped into the room, my presence slicing through their dwindling facade of composure. Their eyes snapped to me, wide and startled. Sarah, her cheeks flushed with the wine, stood too quickly, her balance wavering. She clutched the glass as if it were a lifeline. Derek, slower to react, rose to his feet, his hand drifting toward his jacket. I knew what lay beneath it. He was too late. "What is this?" Sarah demanded, her voice attempting to hold an edge of authority but faltering under the weight of unease. I allowed a cold smile to spread across my face. "You don't have to pretend anymore. I know everything." I took a step forward, my movements deliberate, my eyes locked on theirs. Derek glanced at Sarah, confusion etched across his face, but realization dawned quickly. He reached for the wine glass on the table, staring at it as if it held the answers to an unspoken question. First came the faint nausea. Sarah's hand trembled, the glass slipping slightly from her grasp. Derek's face drained of color, his lips parting as he whispered, "What did you do?" "Me," I said, tilting my head in mock innocence. "I'm just an observer." "You did this to yourselves." Their panic was palpable now, a living, breathing entity in the room. Sarah stumbled backward, clutching her chest as though to steady her racing heart. Derek's knees wobbled, but he remained upright, his eyes darting between me and the wine glass, searching for answers that wouldn't come. "What is it?" he choked out, his voice trembling. "Ricin," I said, savoring the word. "An old trick. It won't kill you. Not right away. But in about 30 minutes, you'll wish it had. Your insides will start shutting down. By the time you even realize what's happening, you'll be too weak to help each other. What do you want?" Sarah's voice was barely a whisper now, her mask of defiance crumbling to reveal the raw fear beneath. I leaned closer, my voice a venomous whisper. "Everything. Your secrets. Your lies. And your lives, eventually." Derek's eyes flickered with something. Not resignation, but desperation. He lunged at me, his movements sluggish but determined. I sidestepped easily, watching as his momentum failed him and he collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Sarah fell beside him, her body racked with spasms, her face contorted in agony. It was then that the weight of my actions began to settle over me. The plan had been meticulous, years in the making. The poison was supposed to be slow, their suffering drawn out, a poetic justice for the betrayals they had inflicted. But as I stood there, watching them convulse and claw at their throats, I realized I had miscalculated. Ricin wasn't just a slow burn, it was a wildfire, consuming them far faster than I had anticipated. Sarah's eyes found mine, pleading, filled with a desperation that pierced through the armor of my resolve. You didn't plan this for us to die," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of her labored breathing. A cold shiver ran down my spine. She was right. This wasn't supposed to end like this. I had wanted them to suffer, to live with the weight of their guilt. But now, as I watched the life drain from their bodies, all I felt was a hollow emptiness. I took a step back, my breath catching in my throat as Derek's final gasp echoed in the room. Sarah's body went limp beside him, her glass slipping from her hand and shattering on the floor. The room was silent now, save for the pounding of my heart in my ears. Justice, I had told myself. This was about justice. But as I stood amidst the wreckage, the truth was impossible to ignore. This wasn't justice. This was something far darker, far colder. And there was no turning back.